Welcome to this week's Release Radar, where we have Emmy Award-winning special guest Keith David joining us to talk about the newly releasing Season 2 of Creepshow. I'm your host, Renessa, and my very first question for you, Keith. Would you choose the Cowardly Lion as your first role again, or would you switch things up with a different Wizard of Oz character?
Oh no, I would. That is certainly one aspect of my life that I absolutely would not change. That was it was a beautiful period in my life. I mean, when I do a one-man show based on the life of Nat King Cole, and it's my celebration of how Nat has influenced my life. And at the time, I was, oh my God, in love with the young girl who played Glenda the Good Witch. It was like my first sort of head over heels kind of moment. And I remember I told this story in the show when I told one of my math teacher, Mr. Tobias. I said, Mr. Tobias, I'm in love. She gives me palpitations. He said, son, go home. That's heartburn.
Oh, goodness.
And she was such a nice, as at the time, I was 9 years old. So, you don't even think about being 15 or being anything but what you are. And so it was great that, she allowed me to share that with her. And we had a mutual admiration society. There was nothing. It was very wonderfully G-rated. And and I moved away from that neighborhood. So after elementary school, I never had any more contact with her. So it just remains a wonderful memory.
Well, that's a very sweet start to things. Now, we are DreamHack. We are video games. We love them. And for some of the people watching, you're obviously going to recognize Keith for a ton of different work, but you might really recognize that voice. I'm just going to list a couple. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Mass Effect, Mortal Kombat, Halo, Darksiders, Chronicles of Riddick. So if you're wondering where you recognize that voice from, we had a couple there. And I want to ask, honestly, what was maybe the most surprising thing for you for doing voice acting for video games?
How they incrementally improved over the years from the first one I ever did, which I don't remember which was the first one I ever did. But they started out kind of clunky. They were not in the sense that it was clearly a game and the animation was rudimentary. And now they've graduated to a point where they're better than some movies. I mean, they're certainly the animation is as good as any of the CGI movies you see, and everything has improved. The acting has improved. The scripts have improved. The storylines are more believable. I love Mass Effect, where you can change the storyline, and
so
more suited to your sensibility and your sense of heroism at the moment.
And so, do you actually ever get time to play any of these games, or is that not?
I rarely do. I rarely do because you know how time consuming it can be. And once you get on a roll, it's like 16 or 18 hours later, you're like, did I eat today? Do I have
I,
anything
you know,
else to
I,
do?
I I'm feeling targeted right now. Okay. No, but we really appreciate, your contribution to gaming history and those essentially movies where we get to determine how they go. But we asked you here because we want to talk about Creepshow, this wonderful legacy of a concept, right? That started ages ago with the first movie in the 80s. And for everyone watching, the first episode premiered on Shudder yesterday, so you'll be able to go check it out. Now, Keith's episode is coming out a little bit later, so he won't be giving you any spoilers. You'll have to wait and see. Now, my question for you, this started from horror comics in the 50s, movies in the 80s, and now TV show following the same vibes. And I'd love to know, how do you prepare for a character like that?
You watch a lot of horror movies.
Yeah.
But it always starts on the page. The writing is good,
Mm-hmm.
and it's well directed. Um, you know, all those wonderful elements. The first one, the very first, first one back in the '80s was fun, and
Mm-hmm.
the first season was, it's like the Twilight Zone with horror, with a horror theme. You know, it's an anthology series, so each story is its own individual tale, and as much fun as episodic TV is, following the
Mm-hmm.
same character, which is it's a different kind of fun.
The best description of the show that I've seen is a comic book comes to life in a series of vignettes. And I'm really fascinated by a comic book presented as a show. And I'm curious, you said watching horror was a way to get into the character. Did you actually go back and look at those 50s comic books as well?
Not for this, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, two of my very close friends are avid comic book collectors. One of them actually owned a comic book store. So
Mm-hmm.
when I need a frame of reference, I can always, give them a call and say, "Do you have this episode? Do you have that? Might you? Or tell me about that." So that's always fun. Um, but I've watched a lot of horror stuff in my time, and I love the genre. Love it's just, who doesn't like to be scared? You know,
uh,
scared
Depending
or
on the
creeped
context.
out.
But when we're recording this interview ahead of time, by the time everyone is seeing it, will be a day after April Fools, and some of those a little too scary for me.
Uh-huh.
But you love horror. Your big start was in The Thing. So when you get brought a role like Creepshow, do you get a little excited because you're like, oh yeah, I get to do horror again?
Yeah. One of the things I like about Creepshow is, there are these, you know, s- comic presentations, um, but there are life lessons in them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So and in ours, it's like, be careful who you do business with. Be careful what bargains you make,
Mm-hmm.
and be careful what you ask for, and also um, be careful what you put out, because there's a wonderful karmic retribution that happens in this story.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, I gotta sit and wait before I can watch it. You're doing this
you
to me
know
now?
and it's like, and some of it, as funny as it is really not so funny. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's ironic funny. It ain't ha ha funny. Uh, Although you'll get nervous laughter out of it because it's like, oh, whoa, you know. So you'll think twice about doing something nasty to somebody.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that does sound like quite the moral act. Gosh, I gotta.
Well, and what I the uh, the moral axiom that I'm going to impose on this episode is when I get even,
Mm-hmm.
I get even worse.
Oh, now that's a good one.
Check that out. The next time you think about getting even with somebody,
Mm-hmm.
dig two graves, one for them and one for you.
Specifically, if we're getting even with you, that's
Yeah,
the
I
risk.
mean,
That's the warning.
specifically about the whole concept of getting even with somebody. I have
Mm-hmm.
learned in my life that it's easier to forgive and move on, or if you're not going to forgive, just move on, because to
Mm-hmm.
spend time thinking of ways to get even, when I get even, I get even worse.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my takeaway, and this is a great example of that.
Okay. Well, I feel like we've been teased so successfully here. Everybody is going to be so ready to watch this. So I'm gonna last little bit of questioning here is I actually would love to give our viewers insight into the filming process during this past year and what being on set looks like. So I was speaking to someone who is on a TV show, as a regular character, and they were saying that it can be really hard because of safety protocols now that you get knocked out of character a little more often. And I'd love to hear your perspective on this because that's my one bit of insight, and I'd love to hear what it was like for you, kind of filming during a pandemic.
Well, first of all, there's a sometimes when you're filming, you can have the kind of luxury where you can afford to, quote unquote, stay in character from your dressing room to the set, um, even to the craft service table.
Mm-hmm.
Um, during this time of COVID, the wonderful thing is that one monkey don't stop no show. We will not
Mm-hmm.
be we're not stopped, but you do have to pay attention. So it's harder to stay in character. That in that sense, I mean, you can always say that my character has to do COVID protocols, but it does. It brings to reality the fact
Mm-hmm.
that you know our our world is almost like a sci-fi movie right now,
Mm-hmm.
because the truth is, I mean, what was that movie? Was it Contagion, or one of those movies that sort of mimicked the time that we're in? I mean, art imitating life, life imitating, the Jodie Foster movie, you know. Um, and here we are, facing a deadly virus that has wiped out 200,000 people worldwide. So you got to pay attention. We want to work. We all want to work. We all want to get back to our lives, get back to the things we like. But if we run before our horse to market, it can be even more costly. So the fact that, that we are allowed to go back to work, which is a beautiful thing. And so if we have to adhere to some, COVID protocols like PPE, keeping your mask on, and whenever you walk around, often washing your hands and sanitizing, social distancing, and unless you're on screen, making sure that we're all vaccinated and tested often. That's the least I can just, to keep your community safe, to keep yourself and your community safe. And, some companies are more thorough than others, but I've been very, very, very fortunate. We finished Black as Night, which is coming out. Right, the lockdown started in March. I think we finished in August, and in August they spent an awful lot of money adhering to protocols and making sure everyone felt safe at all times. And we still got to shoot our movie. So that's a wonderful thing, and it only shows to go you what can, again, I say, like, it feels like we're in a bad sci-fi movie, but in the best part of being in a good sci-fi movie, when your heroes rise to the occasion and everybody escapes the danger because they banded together. That's the possibility that we have now. Just do the right thing, do the next rightest thing, and we can all get out of this together safely in a timely fashion. Just my personal opinion, the reason why we're in the predicament we're in today is because, people let their ego run before they're behind to market. And nobody wants to be cooped up and forced inside. But if that's the worst of your life, come on. There are a lot of economic ramifications. Some people are not allowed to work and therefore their eating habits are changing. Their living conditions are changing. And that's unfortunate. But again, if we help each other, we can all get through it. And like I said, in a timely fashion. It's only when people refuse to follow the science, the best part of the science. And if this time has taught us anything, is okay. There's a lot of information out there, a lot of bullshit information out there, and there's a lot of stuff that you really should not pay attention to, because, and that's another unfortunate part about the internet is, how opinions are. Everybody's got one, and everybody puts it out there. Now you have to, it's up to you to discern. Now, consider the source. Does this person really know what they're talking about? Or are they just espousing an opinion because they have one? And it's more inappropriate than it is wrong, but what's wrong about it is when they don't, preface, the crap that comes out of their mouth. This is just my opinion based upon nothing but my own thoughts, so I'm saying that, so now say whatever you want to say. But when you put it out there as if you're an authority or that you've done any research whatsoever, and because some people don't bother to do any research or investigate anything that somebody says, and they just start believing it. That's why you see a bunch of paranoid people walking around, because they believe anything that's being said. That really is like being in a bad movie, because that is a
Yeah, I
bad
was
movie.
going to say that tracks well with horror in general as a genre too.
Right.
No, but I think you have a great message in there of working together and that we are hitting the good part of the movie where things are turning around, and I think that's a nice message to end on. You've given us a lot of your time and so many teasers. I'm not a patient person. I'm
Now
not.
tell me, are you in your own room or office, or are you in the office?
No, this is my room. This is the second office bedroom of my own home. Yeah, so this is where I live.
Okay, so I see. I see you're a princess in the background, and all of
Yeah,
your paraphernalia.
yeah. No, I've got to maintain the nerd cred. All right, I work for a video game company. I have to establish that in every. Maybe you should see the computer, really. So I got to be consistent. All right, well, I really appreciate your time. As you heard us say many times, Creepshow just came out yesterday on Shudder. This is season 2, and you're going to be able to see Keith's episode shortly, in about a week or so. Keith, thank you so much for your time. This was wonderful insight and a lot of great messages from it. We really appreciated it.
I appreciate you so much.
Thanks for
Thank you
watching,
so much.
everyone.